Welcome to Dude Rakes. Each week, we'll do a deep dive into Clemson baseball with special guests knowledgeable about Clemson and/or college baseball. It's a casual, laid-back, but fast-paced 15 to 20-minute show. With that, let's get started.
All right, welcome into Dude Rakes. This week, I've been looking forward to this one for a couple of weeks, ever since I reached out to Monty and he agreed to come on, and we just found out pre-show is perfect timing. You're going to be at Clemson, Georgia Tech this weekend. But let's start off talking about your background. I noticed on your Twitter bio, it says you're a college baseball writer. You are the host of ACC Central on JML ACC, just means less ACC, which I love the name, by the way. Perfect name. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about just means less ACC, AC Central, and anything else you want to mention.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. But yeah, it's been a couple of years. I've been working as a reporter covering college baseball. It started out, I was supposed to only be covering the University of Virginia for College Baseball Central back in the beginning of 2023. And I realized we had a significant gap in all ACC coverage, as I don't think we had anyone covering any of the other 13 teams at the time. And I started falling in love with a bunch of the other teams. Clemson, that Clemson team that year, in particular with Caden Grice and Billy Amick and that group, was one of those teams that I certainly fell in love with. And I started just covering the whole conference. And one of the nice things is now is I get to cover it. And I'm not as objective. When people say journalist, I don't think I'm a journalist. I'm not super objective. I can be at times, but I'm very easy to get excited about teams and players. And the nice thing is I get excited about all the ACC teams. And one of the nice things about my job is when I go to a game that's an ACC matchup, I get to choose based on who wins what I'm covering. So that's always nice to, kind of be positive there. It's like, but after that, I hooked up with Micah and Nick over at Just Means Less. They were doing some baseball coverage, and Micah's the one that came up with the name Just Means Less, which is one of the all-time names out there. And they let me start running the baseball stuff. And then from there, I joined Just Baseball after my time at College Baseball Central ended. So I'm wearing a couple hats, and I've been lucky enough to get to do Georgia Tech radio, which is what I'm going to get to do this weekend. So I will actually be part of the Georgia Tech traveling party, and I'll be wearing Georgia Tech gear because I'll be on the radio there. But it'll be fun to see this Clemson team in action. And what's funny is I'm lucky enough to have gotten to go to a Clemson regional before I've been to a Clemson regular season game. So I'm looking forward to seeing the atmosphere, for a regular season game, which I understand is still rather significant, maybe not quite to the level of a regional. But that's basically what I've been doing, and mostly the ACC. But I get to dabble in some other things. I'm working on a story about Virginia Commonwealth University, and I live in Richmond, so VCU's in my backyard, and they're a team I'm really looking forward to following. They look much improved based off last year, so I get to dabble here and there. And then I'm keeping my eye on the SEC and the Big Ten and all the goings on across the country.
All right, that's good, because near the end, I'm going to ask you about the national picture and 4 teams that you think have a shot at winning it all. This is Monty Taylor at Monty2740 on S. Give him a follow. He's a really good follow, and he does get excited about college baseball. I think we all do, and that's why we're here talking today. First, I wanted to start off with your thoughts about the ACC as a whole, and maybe some teams that you think have underperformed early in the season. We're only about a quarter of a way through. It's small sample and all those caveats aside, but maybe some teams that have underperformed in the ACC and some teams that have overperformed or have lived up to expectations.
Yeah, one that I'm a little bitter with right now because I was hyping them up in the preseason is Virginia Tech. The pitching staff on paper coming into the season looked phenomenal. They were bringing back their ace, Brett Renfroe. Griffin Stieg, who had a wonderful 2024 before his injury, is back from injury. They brought in a JUCO All-American, one of the best JUCO pitchers in the country, Aiden Robertson. They had a top freshman guy in Grimm. They brought back a ton of guys that had starting experience into the bullpen. And it just looked like it was going to be their chance, especially with a new pitching coach, because obviously that played a factor as well. Over the last couple of years, they've had some real struggles with pitching. And I'm not sure what's gone wrong at Virginia Tech. Now, they have had a very difficult slate. They did have to play 3 ranked SEC teams in Texas. Then they had to open up against Georgia Tech on the road. But the offense hasn't gotten quite going where it needs to be. And Virginia Tech, the mental side of it, they looked a little overwhelmed by those teams, more so than I thought they were going to, because I didn't think 0-3 in Texas would have been the end of the world for Virginia Tech, but the way they did it was almost non-competitive, and that's the concern there. And then the obvious one is Louisville, right?
Right.
You know, there's a lot of star power in that lineup. Zion Rose is now back. He hit a home run today. Tate Davis has 11 home runs already on the season. You got Lucas Moore, who's expected to be a first-round draft pick. You got a lot of guys in that lineup. But I think we found that replacing Patrick Forbes and Tucker Biven on the pitching side is a little bit more difficult than they expected. It's good that Zion's back. They've reeled off a couple of wins here since last week against Morehead State. They looked a little bit more impressive on the weekend pitching-wise, and hopefully they can build off that. But they've got a tough Notre Dame coming into town to start conference play, and Notre Dame pitching-wise isn't a joke. So if Louisville's pitching isn't up to par, Notre Dame could reel off another road win there. If we're talking about surprise teams in a good way, you know, there's a number of them we can look at here, and you know, Notre Dame is one of those. I mean, I kind of expected them to be a tournament team. They finished 16-2 in the regular season last year with some big wins down the stretch. Ultimately fell just a little bit short because Boston College kind of ruined their party in the ACC tournament. But this is a team that relied on a lot of freshmen last year. Those guys have grown up. Jack Radell is a legitimate frontline starter. He retired 38 straight batters at one point this season already, from his first start through his third start, which is absolutely bonkers. Right now, he's in the conversation for ACC Pitcher of the Year, which we know there's a long way to go on that, but it's a very impressive start for him. And the way they're playing, if they can get a decent start to their season and continue their second half surges that they've had over the last couple of years, there should be a tournament team, and that they are a tournament caliber team. But we both know that sometimes it doesn't matter if you're a tournament caliber team, because you got to figure out how to win those games when it matters. The other one I think that I'm still having trouble with, but they've impressed me, is Boston College. And
Miami.
Yes, they went into Miami and won that series. And I can't tell if BC is a good team or not, but they are certainly fun to watch with the brand of baseball that Todd Interdonato has. And so I've kept my eye on them. I don't know. The pitching staff has been very good, which we kind of expected. I was telling people I don't know how much they'll be able to hit, and then they go off and score 26 runs against UConn yesterday in the midweek. So I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to Boston College. We'll see, but they've been kind of a pleasant surprise in terms of how they've started ACC play. They'll have another test this weekend at NC State.
Well, what a wild game. What was it, 26-18 or something like that?
Yeah, 26-19. And I'm like, if they played in football, I don't know if they reached that score.
Probably not Boston College, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We're talking to Monty Taylor here from ACC Central and Just Means Less ACC. I'm such a bad host, Monty. I forgot to mention your Substack, and I'm actually a subscriber to your Substack.
Thank you.
Comes in Monday and Thursday morning. And why don't you tell the folks about your Substack before we move forward?
Yeah. First of all, it's free, which I think is really important because, you know, a lot of college baseball stuff's behind paywalls right now. Understandably so. I mean, we as writers need to get paid somehow. Right. I just know that one of my advantages is trying to get my name out there is to do that for free. And what I do on Mondays is I have a team of the week a weekend. Doing a whole week is a little bit of a bridge too far for me, so I don't typically include the midweeks. So that's where it gets a little confusing because some people will be like, "What about this guy for team of the week?" And I'm like, "Well, the weekend numbers." But I do a team of the weekend, a freshman team of the weekend. I also include what my vote will be for the official ACC pitcher and player of the week, which I am lucky enough to get to participate in thanks to the ACC every week. So I let them know my vote on that. And I also have a freshman of the week. And then I kind of give honorable mentions because 16 teams, there's a lot of guys going off. A good example would be, I think Jay Dillard is somebody who needed to be mentioned in this, even though Zuckerman and Eric Gion had better numbers over the weekend at third base, but Jay Dillard had a fantastic weekend and ultimately entire week. But it's important for me not just to do the team of the week, but to include the honorable mentions because there's a lot of guys that are just absolutely crushing the baseball and there's some near misses. And I want to be able to explain why I went with so-and-so over so-and-so instead of just throwing up a graphic.
Right.
So that's on Mondays. And then Thursdays, just to make it easier, normally you would want power rankings to come out probably earlier in the week, but I end up doing mine after the midweek. So coming out tomorrow will be the 4th week of power rankings. And it's just, the typical power rankings. It's tough in the ACC, especially when we've had an unbalanced group of schedulings. We had 10 teams start ACC play and 6 didn't, but we've got I do power rankings and kind of what they did last week, what they've got coming up. And I've also got a graph for each team that I've started that when you see it, you can see their overall progress throughout the season, ups and downs. So I thought that was a pretty cool addition that I've done to that. So those are the 2 things that come out for free on my Substack Monday and Thursday. And then additionally, there's sometimes other stuff that pops out depending on, what I have going on, because sometimes just baseball, I need something out sooner and I want it to get it out sooner, and I'll just do it through my Substack as opposed to just baseball or one of the other sites I'm involved in. So that's the guaranteed 2 weekly pieces on my Substack.
Yeah, if you're one of those folks, as I put in the tweet, if you're one of those folks that believes the ACC is not covered well enough, there's not enough on the internet about ACC baseball, Monty has you covered. You can find it at Monty 2740. That's on X, and he has a link to the Substack there on X. That's how I found it. That's how I subscribed. Highly recommended that if you're an ACC fan or just a college baseball fan, check out Monty's free Substack. All right, Monty, most of my listeners here and viewers are going to want to know about Clemson. Probably a little less than last night because you know what happens when you lose a game you're expected to win. Some fans disappear, right, real quick. But overall, through 17 games, what have you seen from Clemson? What do you think their strengths are and weaknesses?
Well, for one, we got to start with that pitching staff. That is a legitimate pitching staff. What they've done with, obviously you have Aiden Canuck. My projected Clemson rotation to begin the year, and I believe it was a lot of people's, would have been, the 3 returners, right? You had Canuck, Titsworth, and Bell. Obviously, Titsworth a little bit slow to come in, so he misses the first weekend, and you put Sharman in there, and he's been the best pitcher, one of the best pitchers in the conference so far. So it's kind of funny that I didn't have Sharman projected as a rotational piece. Nobody else really did either, and he's yet been one of the best pitchers in the conference. And it's not like the other starters on Clemson have been particularly bad either. And then you still got Titsworth in there, and the emergence of some of these other arms. LeGuernick has pitched really well. We know the kind of stuff he has. Last year, the command wasn't always there. If he's got the command consistently, he is an elite arm. So he's kind of a bonus guy that you didn't even necessarily, have in there, which is good because you obviously lost Jacob McGovern for the season, which is a huge loss. But you got Joe Allen at the back end, Hayden Simerson, who's got a lot of closing experience at the D3 level. I really like the pitching staff, and it's a strength. The concern I had coming into the season that they tried to address in the offseason was some of the offensive power numbers. And they went out and they got Nate Savoy, who has been fantastic. They went out and got Ty Daly, who I'm waiting to see kind of go off. Those guys combined for 39 home runs last year. And that was supposed to supplement Colin Priest, who we've yet to see this season, and Jacob Jarrell, who is still Jacob Jarrell. So we were expecting those four guys, and that should have been plenty of power. Unfortunately, Ty Daly, who I'm a huge fan of, I love his personality. He is a perfect Clemson player. He hasn't quite gotten to the start he's wanted. I think he's only got the one home run. Nate Savoy has been as advertised, if not better. And then Jacob Jarrell's been Jacob Jarrell. Luke Gaffney is somebody I also thought would have a resurgent season. Obviously, he didn't have the worst numbers last year, but the slug, I'm not sure what happened to the slug since the Purdue season when he was Big Ten Freshman of the Year. That's somebody he hits the ball hard, but it seems to be very, very hard hit on the ground. So the concern I have sometimes is the consistency in the offense, and that's, I think, what kind of happened last night, right? I mean, yeah, you gave up 6 runs to Georgia Southern, but with the offensive caliber and the lack of pitching that Georgia Southern has, you'd have expected to score more runs. So you're going to have these moments where Clemson's offense can disappear at times, but they're still going to have some explosive days like we've seen. But there's going to be some days, I think, where they have some inconsistency. And it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of mitigate that, because it's very similar to what last year's team was like.
Starting with the pitching staff, I think. Let me get your thoughts on this. I'm concerned about the Sunday starter. They have the 17 to 18 arms that Bakich, at least they do for right now, that Bakich promised in the preseason. We started seeing a few cracks last week, even though they routed LaSalle. There were walks and hit batters. And the same thing happened last night. So I'm concerned moving forward, but especially with that Sunday starter. They did not announce the starter today for Sunday.
Yeah.
We've got Canuck and Sharman and TBA or TBD, however they phrased it. But I'm concerned, even when Talon Bell is on, he's not pitching more than 2 or 3 innings. If Titsworth piggybacks, that's generally great, but Titsworth hasn't been great this year so far. Small sample. We know what he can do over the season, but this season he hasn't exactly wowed me. So I'm concerned about that third start. And the other thing is some of those freshman arms that look really, really good in the non-conference or even against South Carolina, the longevity of a college baseball season and how they end up pitching under ACC pressure in, let's say, late April, mid-May type stuff. Those are my concerns on the pitching staff.
Absolutely. It's very valid. The nice thing for Eric Bakich and that staff is that they do have a bevy of options to kind of look at. And I think Titsworth, I think they're still trying to stretch him out a little bit. He's got a late start. He's only had about 6 2/3 innings, I think, which is why he's been piggybacking off of Bell. I think he's going to be fine if you get him stretched out to be the Sunday starter. I think that's probably one of the better Sunday starters in the league, even if he's been not his best this year. I think he's got like a 4 ERA, which for a Sunday starter is phenomenal. But you've got some high upside guys, maybe not necessarily the best track records, but Ariston VC, he's somebody who's got some filthy stuff. Noah Samole is somebody that I want to happen so bad, because if he was able to figure out the control and command, that is a monster in the making on the mound. I mean, that's somebody I would love to see break out. And then, you've got Brendan Bennett, who is, a really talented guy. He's somebody I would love to see. Obviously, Dane Muller's working his way back from the injury that sidelined him last season. And then you've got the freshman arms in there. Some of them have already really been impressive. And, I'm kind of excited to see somebody I think is going to take that role and run with it. And it's going to be really fun to watch that unfold, who it's going to be. I can't tell you who it's going to be. I just gave you some options there, but it's going to be fun to watch. It's not like you don't have options like, oh my gosh, I don't even know who to try it, on Sunday. Whereas they've got plenty of options to keep trying.
I've got one you did mention. Now, this is not as a starter, but out of the bullpen, one of the young arms is Danny Nelson, was hitting 98 last weekend. And I was texting our friend Casey Cregan. I was texting him. I said, Nelson, I call him Danny Dimes. I said, Danny Dimes is hitting 98 out of the bullpen. He said, when's the last time Clemson had somebody throwing 98 out of the bullpen? The kid's been electric. Every time he's in there, we'll see the environment gets ramped up. He did pitch against South Carolina, but the ACC weekend after weekend, we'll see what that looks like as the season moves on. bigger
Well,
picture. Well, go ahead.
I was just saying the most encouraging thing about Danny Nelson isn't just how well he's pitched, but he's not walking guys either.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think he has a walk at all season. So
Yeah.
I mean that's a really encouraging arm, and he's obviously been out there and gotten some multi-inning saves as well.
Yeah, he's really stepped up early in the season. I share your concerns with the bats. At some point, I was just looking while you were talking. Ty Dowley, I was updating it for my X article tomorrow. Ty Dowley is sitting at a 31 WRC plus with the one home run against South Carolina. You're not the only one that just keeps waiting. You just feel like there's going to be a breakout, but at some point, sitting with a 31 WRC plus and I believe a 273 WOBA, at some point you've got to have a conversation about that. I don't know when that is, and I don't know that they have anybody that's better than him. Certainly nobody with more potential as the NCAA home run leader, active home run leader. But at some point you need some production out of your right fielder.
Absolutely, and he's a wonderful human being. I'd love to see him do well because he's such a fun personality, and I got to interview him in the fall, and just a great personality, great kid, and I'm looking forward to seeing him hopefully figure it out. And the problem is you get in these ruts, and the mental part kind of takes over, and you start to press, and it just kind of it's hard to pull out of that spiral. So I'm hoping he's able to do it soon. Obviously, it's about to get a little bit harder with conference play starting.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we often forget. We think we sometimes think they're machines, but they're human beings, and they're young human beings, right? That girlfriend problems and family problems, just like me and you have, right? And well, I'm married, I don't have a girlfriend problem, but oh, my wife didn't hear that. But anyway, they got problems just like you and I do. So hopefully, as you said, he gets straightened up, and if he gets going, boy, that solves a lot of their problems. He's not the only one. Purify had a huge weekend against LaSalle. But before that, he was just, I would say, mediocre. He had a game here and then no, and a game there and no. So we really need to get him going at the top of that lineup. Gaffney has been better. I noticed the same thing you did. Lots of ground balls, lots of double plays. But he's getting the ball in the air a little more this year. He's doing a lot more than he did last year. I wanted to look. Yeah, he's at 106 WRC plus. So he's on the positive side of the ledger. Okay, big question for you, Monty. Super regional team, Omaha team, or not? Clemson Tigers. At this
point, I'm gonna say they have the capability for sure. I hate to write anyone down. I mean, if we were talking this time 2023, we're talking about, where in the bottom, 4 of the ACC is Clemson finishing, and yet they won the conference tournament. They were the hottest team in baseball down the stretch, and they didn't get started till the end of March, if I recall correctly. So, it's hard to say, but I'm going to go ahead and just say yes, just to, because I think they're capable, and the pitching staff is what has me kind of convinced there. And again, you got guys that, Ty Dowley can figure it out. Luke Gaffney, you said he's hitting the ball in the air more, that he sticks with the process, and the home runs will come. The doubles will come. And all of a sudden, we're talking about a different Clemson offense here. So teams are still figuring it out. Clemson's still figuring it out, and I think they're definitely in the conversation. And they haven't even started conference play as of this podcast, so they could get stuff started. And maybe Ty Dowley just needs a little bit tougher competition. I mean, his home run was against South Carolina, an SEC school, so maybe he's looking for a Power 4 matchup here to kind of get that started.
Maybe that'll help him lock in a little more. Monty Taylor at Monty27 for you on X. I certainly recommend you subscribe and follow. And again, Monty's Substack's running across the bottom of the screen here. Please subscribe. It is free, cost you $0. You learn a lot about ACC baseball and college baseball in general. Monty, I'm going to test that knowledge of college baseball in general here, and I want to see what you think about the best teams in the nation. I won't ask you to go through the top 25, but give me 4 teams that you think have a chance to win the national championship.
probably end up giving you a few more just because it's just so hard to narrow it down to 4, and I want to make sure we don't just go all the way around. It starts, I think, with UCLA and Texas right now, right? Texas is yet to drop a game. The rotation is legit. I mean, their best starter might be the Sunday guy in Dylan Volantis. I mean, just an unbelievable job that I'm not a big fan of Schlossnagle, but he's done a fantastic job there at Texas. We know he's a winner. Doesn't matter what type of person he is, but he's a winner. And he's doing really well there at Texas. You got to feel really good if you're a Longhorn fan. Obviously, we're going to see how they handle the grind of the SEC schedule because that's a different beast. But so far, so good for Texas and Austin there. UCLA, that's a team. I did have them in my Omaha 8 to begin the year. UCLA as a program has a history of underachieving when they are expected to be a top team. And this, these players have nothing to do with that because they are all young guys, but they have been there for 3 years and they are legit. And the lineup is very, very good. Now, the question is the grind of the Big Ten going to be enough to kind of test them for the postseason? You just kind of worry about the same thing with somebody like Oregon State who doesn't have a conference. I think the SEC and the ACC, where you have to grind out weekends and there's no weekends off, is a really, really helpful for postseason. But then again, I'm saying that, and Coastal had a fairly easy grind last year in the Sun Belt, and they were the runners up for the national championship. So if I'm starting with 1 and 2, it's going to be Texas and UCLA. If we're sticking in the SEC, you've got a bevy of SEC teams that you could choose from. I mean, obviously Florida's had issues, but I love that pitching staff. But I'm going to go with LSU. I know they've struggled really recently as well. I saw them in Jacksonville though, and their weekend starters are legit. Maybe not to the level of Ianson and Cade Anderson last year, but they get the job done. And then William Schmidt on Sundays is just unfair. But that lineup they don't chase ever. You have to throw the ball in the zone. And I'm not sure, I haven't watched them enough in their little bit of a dip here to know exactly what's gone wrong, but it never even felt like they got to 4th gear in Jacksonville, and they dominated that weekend. So LSU's a team I still believe in. And then I've kind of been trying to work through who I would give some ACC love to. Obviously, Clemson's in the conversation. Florida State's going to be in the conversation. UNC lost the other day, but I still think they have one of the best pitching staffs in the country, and it's hard to go against them. I just want to see their offense improve a little bit. And then, Georgia Tech is a wagon. We know what their offensive numbers are doing, but their pitching needs to improve because they've taken a little bit of a step back from last season where they looked really good. I think they were 3rd in the ERA category. They've taken a little bit of a step back. They're trying to figure out the starting roles. Mason Patel was out this past weekend. Hopefully he's back soon for them. But that's a number of them for me. Mississippi State being the only team I really like that I didn't mention. And that's just because of my love for Brian O'Connor and the former UVA boys that are down there.
Yes. I was going to say Patel he's one of those guys that feels like he's kind of like the Hunter Renfroe of college. Feels like he's been there for 9 years, right?
Well, he has. I don't know how. When I was told, because I was told very early on he had eligibility to come back, and I went and I looked, and I'm not sure where that eligibility came from, but I knew way ahead of time from the coaching staff that he was going to be good to go. So I'm not sure where it came from, but it is 6 years, so he has been there forever.
Okay, I didn't even know that. That was supposed to be a joke, but obviously I did.
No, that's why I was like, you think it's a joke, but actually.
We feel the same way. I was talking to a friend of mine. We feel the same way about Talmadge Lee Croy at South Carolina. It's like the guy's been there for like 9 years. He's finally a senior, but sometimes that doesn't mean anything in college athletics these days. Being a senior doesn't mean what it used to be. Again, a bad host. I skipped over talking about the ACC in general and who you think could win there, but more to the point. I'm glad you brought up Notre Dame. Let's see Clemson plays next weekend. But this weekend, they're playing Georgia Tech in Clemson. You're going to be there, as you talked about earlier. Tell us about Georgia Tech. Tell the Clemson fans listening about Georgia Tech and what we can expect.
This is going to be a lot of fun because it's going to test both the Georgia Tech offense. Now, the Georgia Tech offense has passed every test they've had. The Virginia Tech pitching staff is not terrible. Like they looked very mediocre against Georgia Tech, but I think that's a testament to the offense. But it's going to be a fun test because the Clemson pitching staff is better than the Virginia Tech's pitching staff. So it's going to be fun to see that matchup. And I cannot wait to see. But the offense is there's no breaks. Carson Kirsch leads the countries in doubles, and he is your number 9 hitter. So, Caleb Daniel is somebody who will be in the 8 hole, and I think he's got 6 or 7 home runs. Drew Burress hasn't even really gotten going in terms of his home run hitting, and he is one of the best hitters in the country. So you take that into account, it gets really scary. So you can't make any mistakes. They're going to grind out at bats. They're going to get on base. I think they've got over a 500 OBP right now. The numbers they're putting up are ridiculous. Now that this is a different story, Clemson's going to be the best team they face to this point. So those numbers should come down. I expect them to come down a little bit. If they don't, then we start talking about how scary Georgia Tech is even more so. But it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that pitching staff versus the offense. And then obviously we're going to see if Georgia Tech's pitching can bounce back a little bit, but then we're going to see if Clemson's offense can bounce back a little bit. So we've got some fun storylines in there. And obviously this is a rivalry. These, 2 hours apart from each other. It seems to be a rivalry in all the sports. They don't like each other. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. And you're on the Georgia Tech radio for all 3 games?
All 3 games. Colin Lacey will be on the play-by-play. I'll be on the color commentary. So we'll be doing it for the Georgia Tech side. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I don't know why they let me on the radio, but I'm not going to question it.
Well, I wish you need to send out a link if there is one, so I can.
Yep.
Sometimes I prefer the radio over the guys on TV, depending on who's on the TV.
I wish I could sync up the radio broadcast more because the ACC has some really, really good radio guys that I love when the teams do some of the highlights the next day and they actually take their team's radio audio and do it over it, and it's just phenomenal because as good as the ACC network or ESPN guys are, they're not team specific guys they don't. I mean, the radio guys watch these games every day. They're almost part of the team. I mean, Colin got a ring for the ACC championship run last year for the regular season. It's just really good to, give the radio guys some love because they're really, really good. So I try to listen to the radio as much as I can, which is easier because I do travel a lot. So that's a little bit easier. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And the ACC's got some really good ones, the Virginia Tech guy, UNC, Florida State's really good. Those are the guys that come to mind. Then you've got some like Miami. What I love about Miami has students doing the radio, which is really cool. Interesting.
Yeah. That is really cool. Well, I don't know how you fell into it, but congratulations. I saw you did your first Virginia game earlier.
Yeah.
Last weekend. Was it last weekend?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Which was a bit of a dream come true because I grew up a Virginia fan, and that was quite a moment for me to be able to do that because I listened to their national championship run. I listened to a lot of that on the radio, listening to Channing Poole there, who was phenomenal. So it was really cool to kind of, be in that moment and experience that, even though I'd been on the radio before at Georgia Tech.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. Again, Monty Taylor at Monty 2740 on X. His Substack's running across the bottom of the screen. It's free. It's ACC baseball content, which a lot of people have been asking for this year. It's very well done. Again, I'm a subscriber. I wouldn't send you over there if I wasn't subscribing and reading it. Pops into my inbox every Monday and Thursday. Good stuff, Monty. Monty, I can't say how much I appreciate you coming on, spending a little time with me. I know you're busy. You're traveling to Clemson. So I'm going to let you go, but I really appreciate it. And I hope you'll come back maybe as we get closer to regional time. You'll come back and talk through some scenarios and who you think's going where and all that good stuff you do around regional time.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. It's been a lot of fun talking ball.
All right. Monty Taylor, folks, thank you so much, Monty. Have a great day. Safe travels down to Clemson. I hope you enjoy your weekend.
Thanks. You too.
All right, folks. Monty Taylor from Just Means Last ACC. What a great show tonight. That was a lot of fun talking to Monty. He's going to be in Clemson doing radio for Georgia Tech this weekend. And tomorrow I'll have the X article up with all the updated stats on them. Most look good, even though Clemson lost a game last night. It's not the end of the world. The sky is not falling. The Tigers were not going to go 55-1. Not how you want to lose or who you want to lose to, but it's going to happen. And I venture to say it's probably not the only midweek game Clemson is going to lose this year. But that's it for this week. Once again, thanks to Monty Taylor of ACC Central and Just Means Less ACC. Recommended follow on X, and please subscribe to his Substack. Thanks, and we'll be back next week with another guest.